Hello and welcome back to the Kalopsia pod. I'm your host Sydney and I'm so grateful and excited to see you guys back here with me on the pod for this week's episode. This week I wanted to discuss emotional courage, emotional bravery. So this week's topic actually came to me when I was watching the new Netflix show that came out recently called Forever. Now, if you guys haven't watched it, I'm not trying to spoil it, but in it, one of the main characters is a little bit different. You know, he often says, people often think I'm an asshole, or people often think I'm rude or, aloof, when it's not really the case. It's just the way that he tends to express himself. Now, something that I did notice is that the people online on TikTok, when you're reviewing the show, a lot of people will say that they actually don't mind him. We actually like this character. But despite this aloofness or this, odd delivery in his speech, we do still seem to gravitate towards him and we still seem to like his character. Now, the reason for this is that he portrayed something unique, and that was emotional bravery. Now, what comes to mind when we think of emotional bravery? I think we think of vulnerability. We think of wearing our hearts on our sleeves. We think of being open, being, vulnerable and unapologetic. Now, why is it so difficult to put that into play? Why is that so difficult to actually take that into our lives? And I mean, I might be speaking for myself here, but I do find that it is difficult to do so. I was listening to the Long-Winded podcast with Gabby. I'm forgetting her last name, but her wife is up and coming. I think her name is Robbie, and the wife has been online doing all these different, shows, and she's been acting a lot, these stand-up shows, and like stand-up comedy. And something that she said to her wife, Gabby, she said to Robbie, what I really love about you, what I really appreciate about you is your individuality, your unapologetically being yourself in every project that you work on, and every type of work that you set forth into, you are still yourself. And she was complimenting her about her capacity to do so. And I took a look at myself and I was thinking to myself, can I say the same? Can I say that every place that I go into, every space that I walk into, am I being unapologetically myself? And I think that that is something that kind of comes hand in hand with this emotional bravery, is one's capacity to remain individual when faced with differences in personality, when faced with differences in ideals, when faced with different personalities in general. What the character in Forever was saying when he was saying, I am, often seen as this, aloof, rude person, he knows that about himself, but he wasn't prepared to change anything about it. He sure wanted to be able to express himself correctly, but it's not something that he's actively working to change. I mean, I haven't finished the show, so I can't speak for that, but one thing stands true is that he was himself. He was unapologetically himself. He knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, and he was willing to set forth into the world knowing those. And when it comes to his relationship, it's a love story show. So, I mean, I'm not spoiling when I say that. When I say that in his, romantic endeavors, we often see him putting his best foot forward, putting his heart out there on the line, no matter how it's going to be received. And I think that is the crux of emotional bravery. But coming back to the intersectionality between this individualistic, standpoint, or not individualistic standpoint, but one's capacity to remain themselves and one's capacity to remain true to themselves, and the connection between that and emotional courage, emotional bravery, is the question of influencing. Now, when I say this, I mean, that might have felt like a jump, but I recently saw a TikTok that was, actually not so recently, it must have been a couple months back, but in the TikTok, it was a very cinematic, video, and the speech behind the aesthetic videos was saying, how can we tell whether we have been influenced, right? Or whether we have been absorbed? Have I been influenced to buy that maxi skirt because I really think it's beautiful? I feel freer in it. It's kind of functional for me because I have to lean down, walk around a lot, and maybe having that flowiness of it is going to make it better for me than a midi pencil skirt perhaps. Or have I been absorbed into the trend? What I actually really like to wear is skin tight clothing, and I feel confident that way, but all the girls seem to be wearing maxi flowy skirts now, so maybe I should pick one up when I go to the store next time. How can we make that distinction? I just gave an example that's pretty stark and contrasted, but I feel like that line can be difficult to find when it comes to our daily routines and when it comes to the way that we move through our lives. When we think of influence versus absorption, the bottom line in that is our fear of being left behind. And I think the video said it very, very well. So if I can find it, I'm actually going to put in a clip now.
There's so much influence now, so much noise, so many recommendations disguised as revelations. We're told what to wear, how to talk, what to care about, what to buy before it sells out, and what version of ourselves we should be performing this week. I don't think we're chasing originality. I think we're just trying not to fall behind. And at some point, it gets hard to tell the difference between being inspired and being absorbed.
Okay. And in it, I believe she said, right, I haven't watched it back now, but if I missed something, forgive me. But I believe she said that what really differentiates people who are influenced versus absorbed is in their comfort within themselves, right? My instinct when it comes to making that distinction is how courageous are you to stick to your guns and remain in your particular, type of self-expression, whether that be fashion-wise, whether that be the type of food you eat, whether that be the type of shoes you wear, or how courageous are you to stick to that and fall behind, quote unquote, fall behind the trends and what is popular at the particular moment in time? And how do you feel in being different from others? That's us looking at it from the physical standpoint. Often when we think of influence versus absorption, I'm thinking physical trends. I'm thinking jewelry. I'm thinking hairstyles. I'm thinking nail colors. I'm thinking sweatshirt styles. I don't know. Honestly, now I'm just spitballing. However, when we pivot back to emotional bravery, I think that the bottom line is still the same. How comfortable are you with being rejected? The thing about emotional bravery is that you need to be prepared for rejection. You need to be prepared to be looked at in a different way. You need to be prepared to not be received well by everybody you meet. And that's the same thing when it comes to these trends, when it comes to influencers versus like absorption. What we're really doing is making ourselves fit more into the mold, fit more into what is going to be perceived as, oh, okay, she knows how to dress herself. Oh, okay, she gets it. She knows what's in style right now. Okay, that's kind of what we're thinking when we're thinking of, okay, let me hop on this trend. It's so that we are almost more palatable for people who are going to be looking at us. When it comes to emotional bravery, again, it's about thinking about, how do I make myself more palatable? And that is where emotional bravery ends. When we start thinking, how can I make myself more palatable to this person? How can I make it so that I am able to get along with everybody around me? How can I make it so that I avoid the most amount of conflict? That is where emotional bravery ends. When we look at the example from Forever, he often says, I'm aloof, I'm whatever, people think I'm an asshole, whatever. But he remains himself. He remains wearing his heart on his sleeve. Some people get it, some people don't. He only has one friend in the show, and he's happy with that. Now, another example that comes to mind, I just watched Overcompensating. Again, a new show that came out on Prime Video. This one was fantastic show. I really recommend. But there's this one character in it. I believe she's one of the main girls' roommates. She's blonde, and, she's this Charlie XCX super fan. You'll know her when I mention that. And something about her that I also thought was interesting, much like a character actually in Adults, if anybody's watched that show, it was pretty good as well. I mostly watched it for Owen Thiel. I've talked about his In Your Dreams podcast in here before. I'm obsessed with it. The obsession has not died, so I'm watching everything he's in. He was in Overcompensating and he was in Adults, but I digress. In Adults, there's this girl. I think her name is Misha. Don't quote me on that. I think her name is Misha, but she's got, a brown hair, a long bob lob kind of moment, and she and the roommate in Overcompensating have something in common. Number one, they're both slight narcissists, which is, that's fine. We're all narcissists at the end of the day, but, they definitely take it a little bit to the extreme. But the other thing that I really loved about them is how deeply they wore their heart on their sleeve. Again, they're unapologetically themselves, and we love to see that in other people. But when it comes to noticing that polarizing quality in ourselves, we immediately shove it down. We immediately think, how can I make myself more palatable? Now, when I was trying to think to myself about who are the most emotionally brave individuals in our society, the number one answer that came to mind was children. Children don't know any better than to wear their heart on their sleeve. Children don't know any better to be loud, to be annoying, to be flamboyant, to be unapologetic, to be shameless. And it's something that we unlearn with time. It's something that we unlearn with age, but they are the freer ones. When we look at these characters, the ones I mentioned from Overcompensating and Adults, some may say that they seem almost childlike. They seem childish. Are you selfish? Why grow up a little, grow some backbone. But when we tell people to grow up, when we tell people to, get their stuff together, what we're really telling them is dampen yourself down, make yourself more palatable, make yourself fit more into the mold of what we are used to seeing, so that we don't have these polarizing conversations or these polarizing interactions. And when I say polarizing, I mean when you meet them, it's either you love them or you hate them. Oh, it's I can't stand that person, they are just la 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 la, like that's crazy, that's ridiculous. Or it's, I'm obsessed with them, like this is amazing, whatever. You're not really going to get that middle ground that we're almost used to, where it's like, oh, they're cool. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, they're pretty nice. I mean, nothing special. We are special. We're all special types of people. We're not meant to be these mediocre personalities. I feel like it's almost something that we've trained ourselves to become, and I don't say that to insult anyone, but I feel like I'm not the only one in saying that people have become less interesting for the sake of remaining palatable, for the sake of remaining in trend. Emotional bravery or emotional courage is inherently that willingness to face and feel and act through your difficult emotions as well. When you are dealing with something, a conflict, we talked about this in the, how to be confrontational, or how to, handle contradiction when you're non-confrontational. We have to trust others to be able to take polarization. We have to trust others to be able to digest our opinions as well. It's not productive to remain neutral. It's not productive to remain palatable. Growth is not going to come from that. Stagnation will come from that. But emotional courage inherently pushes us to try to, speak our minds, stand on our morals, push back when we have to, agree when we want to. It's all in their capacity to face risks and their capacity to overcome difficult situations. Something else that I really liked about the character in Forever, and something that I think is a big attribute to emotional courage and emotional bravery, is that it's almost a sense of taking action despite fear. It's not that they don't feel fear. It's not that they reject fear, but it's being able to sit within that fear of being different, that fear of being rejected, that fear of straying from the status quo, and still taking action, still persevering and sticking to what they believe in. Coming back to the example of the skirts, right? If this person loves a pencil skirt, loves a skin tight skirt, everybody out there is saying, oh my gosh, you know what? You would look really, really cute with a maxi flowy skirt. Like, it would be beautiful on you. It would be so much more like stunning, whatever. It's like, oh, actually I'm good with my skin tight dark leather midi pencil skirt. That's what I want to wear. Yeah, sure, it's different, but I mean, that's what I feel comfortable in, that's what I feel confident in, and that's what I want to wear. So no, thank you. That is what it looks like, maybe on that kind of extreme physical end. But emotionally, it's being able to put yourself out there, wear yourself on your sleeve, be really loud and really passionate and really enthusiastic about something that you're passionate about, knowing that the people around you may not be on that train, right? For example, I feel like growing up, I was a very, very enthusiastic kid. I was very energetic. I was very loud, and I was annoying. Or at least I was told I could be annoying. I argue to say that all 12-year-olds are annoying. All 10 to 16-year-olds are annoying, in my opinion. I don't think a single one of them is, they should be annoying. That's the point. They should be annoying. They should be too loud. They should be too passionate. They should be all of that. There is no such thing as too much in a child. And I feel like what I was told is that, that's too much, Sydney. Like, don't do all that. You have to be proper. You have to be polite. You have to be palatable. You have to fit in. You don't want to cause conflict. You don't want to attract a bully. You don't want to do any of that. No, tamp your personality down. It'll be safer that way. And I think that it's something that we have taken on into our adult lives. We're no longer talking for hours about the show that we really like and that we're so passionate about, or that the book that we just read that changed our life and changed our perspective entirely. We're no longer talking about that recipe that we really enjoyed, that was so delicious and that we want everybody to try, and we're going to force feed it to all of our friends and family because it is that good and everybody deserves to try it at least once. We're no longer doing that. And that is where we need to remember that emotional courage that we were born with, but that has been unlearned. The thing about emotional courage and the thing about emotional vulnerability and leaning into our authenticity, our individuality, that is going to build our emotional resilience. When we're faced with adversity, when we're faced with haters, when you're faced with people who don't want to see you win, people who may slightly be wishing for your demise, you are going to be able to leave that situation or stand up for yourself, or, deal with the loss of that person in your life with courage and with that comfort of knowing that you have the capacity to overcome that, because you're used to adversity. You're used to, some people not liking you, some people liking you. You're used to that polarization. You're able to withstand that because it's not something that's so earth-shattering to you anymore. It's a disservice to ourselves to remain palatable, and it's a disservice to ourselves to leave our buoyancy and loudness and enthusiasm behind for the sake of seeming more mature and for the sake of seeming dignified. I think that it honestly speaks to more maturity to me to see a person who has gone through hardship, has gone through trials and tribulations, and can still, at the end of the day, remain loud and remain silly and remain childlike. We need to chase that childlike fun. We need to chase that lightness within our hearts, and that is what will give us longevity when it comes to mental health and physical health. The truth is that inauthenticity will chip away at your confidence, Because if you are not comfortable being your authentic self, if you are constantly shifting and molding yourself to what you believe is expected of you in the way that you think that you should act, the less security and dependency you have in yourself and your original character, and you're not going to be comfortable within your own skin. You're not going to feel that sense of confidence within yourself because you spend all of your time trying to be a dimmed version of yourself or trying to be someone else entirely. We need to take action despite fear. We need to remain authentic, and we need to be loud. We need to be proud. That's what we see in all of these influencers. I mean, I'm on a lot of the side of TikTok that's like about creation, but what we love to see and what we love to watch and witness is that authenticity. And the fact that it does better online should tell you that it'll do better in real life too. So why are we continuing to pretend that we are all this clean girl aesthetic or, gym baddie or I don't know, bookworm, starving artist aesthetics? Break up the boxes. You can be all of the above. That in itself is another version of authenticity. It can be a strength that you get along with 5 different types of personalities because maybe you have a little piece of each of these. I'm not saying that it is impossible for you to get along with a lot of different personalities and that makes you palatable. I don't think that's true either. I think it's possible to remain authentic to yourself and also get along with a lot of different people. But it's also important to notice these patterns within yourself. Are you changing yourself in order to fit better into your social group or into your workplace or into your school group? It's something to think about for sure. But I think that's all I have for you guys today. I sincerely hope that you guys enjoyed watching this episode, listening as well. I thoroughly enjoyed recording it, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this whole influence versus absorption, because I really feel like the line is difficult to find, and I am still trying to find that for myself. Am I just into this because I've seen a lot of people doing it? Because also influence and inspiration, the difference between influence and inspiration is also a fine line. Maybe I should do some research on that too. Let me know if you guys would like to hear about that, if that interests you. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Please let me know your thoughts. DM me. If you want to hear something specific, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts if you guys are listening. And subscribe, all of that, whatever. But if you guys want to reach out, DM me any questions or anything. A lot of you guys have been DMing me, and I'm loving hearing it. I'm loving answering your guys' questions. I feel like it's a great learning experience for us both, and I'm really enjoying that. So please continue. But the Instagram and TikTok for the pod is at kalopsiapod, KALOPSIAPOD on Instagram and TikTok, and then it's at Sydney Jotita at SYDNEYDJOTITA on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And so that is my personal one. If you guys want to see me, that is an option. But I thoroughly enjoyed filming this for you guys, and I'm grateful that you clicked on this week's video or episode, and I will see you guys next Friday. Have a good weekend.